Welcome to the Special Forces in World War II podcast, transmitting on this frequency. This broadcast is your dedicated channel for comprehensive intelligence regarding World War II Special Forces operations. Our transmissions encompass in-depth analysis of their strategic maneuvers, cutting-edge equipment, illustrious biographies, and an array of pertinent subjects. The orchestration of these transmissions is executed by the expert team of the Special Forces in World War II website, a squad deeply immersed in the historical theatre. For further insights, visual aids, and captured moments frozen in time, navigate to our virtual headquarters at worldwar2-soft.com. Your immersion into the front lines of knowledge awaits. Over and out. Welcome to a new episode of the Special Forces in World War II podcast. Today, we continue our exploration of Operation Frankton with Episode 2, The Assault Phase. In the previous episode, we delved into the meticulous planning and preparation that set the stage for this daring mission. We discussed how Major Herbert Blondie Hasler and his team of 12 men from the Royal Marine Boom Patrol Detachment trained rigorously and developed innovative strategies to launch a covert attack on Bordeaux harbour using 6 canoes. In this episode, we shift our focus to the assault phase, where these brave commandos embarked on their perilous journey. We will recount the tense moments as they navigated through enemy waters under the cover of darkness, the strategic deployment of limpet mines, and the incredible bravery displayed by each member of the team. The challenges they faced were immense, but their determination and skill enabled them to strike a significant blow against the Axis powers. The assault phase of Operation Frankton began with the men launching their canoes from the submarine HMS Tuna, several miles off the coast of France. They paddled through treacherous waters, facing strong currents, cold temperatures, and the constant threat of detection by enemy patrols. As they approached Bordeaux harbour, the tension mounted. The commandos had to carefully navigate past enemy defences, relying on their training and the element of surprise. Once inside the harbour, the men executed their mission with precision. They placed limpet mines on several German cargo ships, ensuring the explosives were set to detonate at the optimal time. The meticulous planning paid off as the mines caused significant damage, disrupting the German supply chain and dealing a blow to the Axis war effort. However, the mission was not without its sacrifices. The journey back was fraught with danger, and not all the commandos would make it to safety. Their courage and resolve in the face of overwhelming odds remain a testament to their dedication and heroism. Join us as we chronicle the courageous assault on Bordeaux harbour, examining how these commandos overcame immense odds to achieve their mission. This episode not only provides a detailed account of the raid, but also pays tribute to the extraordinary valor and dedication of the Royal Marine Boom Patrol Detachment. Stay tuned for an in-depth look at the execution of Operation Frankton and the heroic efforts of these remarkable men. Major Hasler and No. 1 Section board the submarine HMS Tuna on November 30th, 1942, embarking on a critical covert mission. The intricate process begins with carefully loading the collapsible canoes and essential supplies through the submarine's forward torpedo hatch. Lestrange and Jock Stewart, privy to the mission's details, offer quiet farewells and good luck as the Tuna departs from HMS Forth, with the Marines saluting their depot ship in a solemn ceremony that underscores the gravity of their undertaking. Once underway, Hasler gathers his men in the forward torpedo space, surrounded by the stowed canoes and gear, to finally disclose the mission's nature. He explains that they are to execute a real operation against the enemy, targeting the Gironde estuary near Bordeaux. The plan involves a nighttime drop 10 miles south of Pointe de Grave, navigating strong tidal currents and using the cover of darkness to approach and sabotage enemy ships in Bordeaux with limpet mines. Major Hasler has assigned specific target areas along the Gironde estuary to different divisions of his team, organizing them based on their operational roles and areas of expertise. Here is how the assignments and targets are distributed. Bordeaux, West Bank, A Division, Canoe Catfish with Major Hasler and Marine Sparks. B Division, Canoe Cuttlefish with Lieutenant McKinnon and Marine Conway. Bordeaux, East Bank. A Division, Canoe Crayfish with Corporal Laver and Marine Mills. B Division, Canoe Coalfish with Sergeant Wallace and Marine Hewitt. Bassins, North and South Keys. A Division, Canoe Conga with Corporal Sherd and Marine Moffat. B Division, Canoe Cachalot with Marine Ellery and Marine Fisher. The operation is meticulously timed to coincide with the second week of December's dark period for optimal stealth. Hasler outlines the German defences they will face, including armed patrols and heavy artillery on land, and stresses the importance of stealth, careful navigation, and the strategic placement of limpets on target ships. The raiders are instructed on the specifics of navigation, enemy engagement avoidance, and the procedure for the eventual scuttling of their canoes and overland escape through Spain, emphasizing the operation's high risk and the improbability of external extraction. The briefing concludes with a detailed discussion on emergency protocols, interaction with locals, and a secret communication method to be used if captured. Despite the daunting nature of the mission, Hasler's thorough preparation and transparent briefing bolster the morale of his men, who are eager to execute the plan and trust in Hasler's leadership. The atmosphere is tense, yet charged with a resolute spirit, as the men prepare to face one of their most challenging operations. From December 1st, 1942 to December 5th, 1942, the submarine heads towards the operational area. During the first night, Lieutenant Hasler and his team aboard the submarine Tuna successfully conduct their final rehearsal for hoisting the canoes out, completing the task in a swift 31 minutes. This marks the start of a week filled with intense preparations as the submarine navigates towards the mission zone. Throughout the week, Hasler continuously reviews the operational plans with his team, ensuring every member can operate independently if necessary. They practice the NOAD 3 code, meant for communication if captured, and attempt to learn basic French phrases, although many find this challenging and consider relying on sign language instead. The team carefully studies air photos and new intelligence to familiarize themselves with the terrain and identify potential hiding spots along the Gironde estuary. McKinnon, particularly motivated, lectures on the expected coastal features at their hiding spots. All equipment and escape gear are thoroughly inspected and repacked, with Hasler explaining their use in detail. As Tuna travels through the Irish Sea and the Bristol Channel, the rough conditions cause seasickness among the crew. To avoid enemy detection, Tuna submerges during the day and only surfaces at night. The cramped conditions and limited sanitation aboard the submarine lead to discomfort and claustrophobia, complicating the crew's adjustment to life underwater. Despite these challenges, the Marines' morale gradually improves. They are intrigued by the operation of the submarine and the leadership of Captain Dick Rakes. Rakes manages the crew with calm and precision, maintaining discipline and efficiency. His methodical approach and the strict environment aboard Tuna help ensure that all operations are conducted smoothly. This intense preparation period is critical for ensuring that each team member is ready and focused for the mission. As they approach their target, the crew is not only prepared operationally, but also mentally for the challenges ahead. The rigorous planning and the difficult conditions they endure aim to prepare a resilient team capable of executing a challenging raid against tough opposition. As the HMS Tuna nears the French coast on December 6, 1942, it submerges for the approach, surfacing only briefly around midday. Below deck, Major Hasler's Marines ready themselves for disembarkation, buoyed by the calm sea conditions and light-hearted banter among themselves. However, precision is crucial for the success of the mission. The submarine's Captain Rakes is adamant about accurately determining their location to ensure that Hasler can effectively navigate towards Pte de Grave and into the Gironde estuary. Rakes stresses the importance of this precision, expressing concern about a nearby minefield laid by the Royal Air Force, which has unreliable charting. He plans to use his periscope to take multiple bearings of coastal points to fix their position accurately. Unfortunately, Captain Rakes faces significant challenges due to mist that morning, which prevents him from obtaining an astrofix, a necessary series of star readings that would have provided a precise location. This astrofix is crucial for identifying specific coastal features in the afternoon. Additionally, the presence of French fishing boats complicates matters further. These boats, potentially carrying German observers with radios, pose a threat to the submarine's stealth approach. Rakes has to frequently raise and lower the periscope, which could easily be spotted by fishermen in the calm sea conditions. By late afternoon, after several attempts to secure a reliable position fix without success, Captain Rakes makes the decision to delay the mission. He communicates to Major Hasler that they cannot safely proceed towards the minefield without a more accurate fix. Disheartened, Major Hasler relays the news to his Marines, who are already geared up for action. While there is an initial disappointment, morale is quickly bolstered by humor, as one Marine jokes about enjoying a proper breakfast the following morning instead of the usual composite rations. They then repack their gear, preparing to wait for another day. On December 7, 1942, under continued calm conditions, HMS Tuna obtains a satisfactory astrofix before dawn, allowing Captain Rakes to navigate closely to shore using the periscope despite high enemy air activity. Captain Rakes painstakingly takes coastal bearings, maneuvering northward under the threat from both the minefield and enemy aircraft until spotting the Cordouan lighthouse, confirming their position. At 13:45, Captain Rakes informs Major Hasler they have a solid fix near the planned disembarkation point, despite the proximity to the troubling minefield and a German radar station. This update revives spirits, setting the stage for the night's operation, pending avoidance of patrolling enemy boats. As night falls, the Marines assemble their gear and prepare the canoes with precision. Despite a clear night increasing the risk of detection, the crew is ready by 19:30, and the submarine surfaces. Captain Rakes and the lookout crew, pre-adapted to the dark, remain vigilant for enemy patrols. A German trawler is spotted, but deemed a safe distance away. The deck crew efficiently launches the canoes. However, during the deployment of the canoes from HMS Tuna, an incident occurs with one of the canoes, the cachalot. As it is being hoisted through the torpedo hatch, the canoe snags on a sharp edge of the hatch clamp, resulting in a significant tear in its canvas side. Marine Ellery, responsible for the cachalot, immediately notices the damage and calls over Major Hasler to inspect the canoe. Upon reviewing the damage, Hasler quickly determines that the tear is too severe for the canoe to be safely used in the operation. He decisively instructs Ellery to lower the cachalot back into the submarine, effectively removing it from the mission. This decision visibly affects Marine Ellery, who appears disappointed by the outcome. The situation also deeply impacts Fisher, Ellery's No. 2. Known for his resolve despite not being able to swim, Fisher is emotionally overwhelmed by the sudden cancellation of their participation. Despite this setback, the rest of No. 1 section is hoisted successfully into the Bay of Biscay, under the cover of darkness and amidst the distant glow of searchlights and the chill of the open sea. By 2022, all operational canoes are in the water, maneuvering into formation, ready to execute their mission. The crew of HMS Tuna bids farewell to the Marines. During the evening, the operation's setting is marked by a tense yet quiet atmosphere as the 5 cockle canoes navigate the Biscay Sea. The calm is occasionally broken by the sounds of paddles stirring the water. The crews are alert and determined, following a course designed to navigate between PTE de Grave and the island of Cordouan. Early on, Major Hasler discovers a significant error in his compass, but manages to correct it using the North Star for guidance. The night's challenges include managing a slight leak in Hasler's canoe and contending with the cold, which is exacerbated by the seawater spray. As they progress, the Marines have to adjust their routes slightly eastward to align with the coastal contours. The quiet of the night is soon interrupted by the alarming sound of roaring water ahead, signaling the approach of a tide race, a sudden rush of strong tidal flow across a sandbank or through a narrow channel, which can be perilous for small vessels like their canoes. Hasler, drawing on his experience with similar conditions at Start Point and St. Albans Head, quickly gathers the crews to explain the situation. He instructs them to apply their rough water training, which involves tightening cockpit covers and maneuvering head-on into the tide race. The teams brace themselves and successfully navigate through the turbulent waters, though not without significant effort and risk. Unfortunately, during this first encounter with the tide race, Sergeant Wallace and Marine Hewitt in the Coalfish are lost from sight and do not rejoin the group. Despite efforts to locate them, including using a seagull call signal, there is no response, and the harsh conditions and swift tide make it impossible to conduct a thorough search. On December 8, 1942, regrouping after the ordeal, the remaining canoes continue towards their objective, only to face another tide race. This second encounter is even more intense, with waves reaching heights that severely test their endurance and skill. Amidst the chaos, the conger capsizes, throwing Corporal Sherd and Marine Moffat into the icy waters. Though they manage to cling to their canoe, the situation is dire. Hasler makes the tough decision to abandon the swamped conger to avoid compromising the entire mission. Sherd and Moffat are instructed to attempt an escape ashore, highlighting the brutal realities of such covert operations where difficult decisions must be made for the greater good of the mission. As they approach the lighthouse at Pointe de Grave, which unexpectedly turns on, illuminating the area and potentially exposing them to enemy observation, the men come upon 3 German frigates. Lying flat on the canoes and paddling silently, they manage to get by without being discovered. Once cleared, the Marines face yet another tide race. This third challenge proves just as daunting, with all members struggling to maintain control and cohesion. During this tumultuous crossing, the team from Cuttlefish, with Lieutenant McKinnon and Marine Conway, faces extreme difficulties. The powerful currents and challenging navigation conditions prove too much, and the Cuttlefish is last seen struggling to maintain course. The fate of its crew becomes uncertain to the remaining members of the operation, adding to the operation's toll. Hoping they would continue their mission on their own, the team continues their journey. Exhausted, cold, and significantly reduced in number, The remaining teams manage to navigate past the hazards and make their way into the estuary as dawn approaches. They start seeking a hiding place to rest. On the first night, the two remaining crews covered over 40 kilometers in 11 hours and land near Pointe aux Oiseaux around 7:45. While they are hiding during the day and unknown to the others, Sergeant Wallace and Marine Hewitt in Coalfish are captured at daybreak beside the Pointe de Grave lighthouse, where they came ashore. As Major Hasler and his group are hiding, they observe local fishermen and their families starting their day by the river. After taking shifts for a brief rest and consuming compact rations, Hasler decides to reveal their identity to ensure the fishermen's silence, hoping it decreases the risk of betrayal. The Frenchmen, likely frightened and preferring to avoid trouble, give no guarantees but offer some food before departing. The team is exhausted, enduring harsh conditions without adequate sleep or shelter. They stay vigilant, fearing the Germans might be alerted to their presence due to missing comrades or radar detection of their submarine, Tuna. They brace for potential confrontations, but are relieved when a perceived threat turns out to be mere stakes on a dike. Around 23:30, the men put their canoes back in the water. Getting the boats clear of the shore in the dark is challenging due to large areas of outlying sandbanks beyond the low water mark. The Atlantic swell breaks into small, fast rollers over these sandbanks, which the canoes must confront head-on. Skillfully, Hasler navigates through these obstacles into the open channel. Navigation becomes straightforward as the port-hand buoys of the shipping channel flash blue lights, guiding them. They maintain a distance of about 200 yards from the channel to avoid any shipping. The weather remains flat, calm, and cloudless. During the early hours of December 9th, 1942, Major Hasler sets a vigorous pace, braving extremely cold conditions. The spray freezing on the cockpit covers and ice forming on their gloves from the dripping paddles add to their challenge. The occasional Benzodrine tablet helps them push through the cold, and during hourly rests, they exchange jokes and discuss their progress and plans. One tense moment occurs when they must cross the shipping channel and narrowly avoid a convoy of large ships, an encounter that highlights the potential dangers of their journey, but also underscores the strategic importance of their mission. After 6 hours of strenuous paddling, covering again a little over 40 kilometers, they reach the east bank of the estuary, north of Porte de Calange, continuing some 1.5 kilometers offshore until dawn approaches. Hasler, utilizing his exceptional night vision, locates an almost perfect hiding spot around 7:30 between two hedges by a field, allowing them a much-needed rest in a dry ditch. Despite a day of relative quiet, the presence of a low-flying German plane and the activity of local cows near their hideout keep them alert. They manage to rest intermittently, with the constant buzz of aircraft overhead, reminding them of the ever-present danger. Major Hasler holds on to hope for the canoe teams of Wallace and particularly McKinnon, believing they might still be actively pursuing their objectives independently, though he harbors concerns about their potential capture. Preparing for the third night, Major Hasler faces the challenge of timing. They need to start early due to limited hours of favorable tides, but must also navigate through a complex area with many islands and varying tidal conditions. The plan involves making the most of 3 initial hours of flood tide, followed by 6 hours of ebb, during which they must secure another night hide, before another 3 hours of flood tide before dawn. They aim for a location optimistically named Desert Island. As twilight falls, the calm weather continues, offering too much visibility for comfort. The raiders, stiff and cold from their hiding spot, eagerly prepare for the physical exertion of the night. They carry their canoes to the river. As the team prepares to launch, their movement catches the attention of a local Frenchman from a nearby farm, who approaches curiously. Unlike the reserved fisherman they encountered earlier, this man is openly friendly, offering them a drink at his house. Hasler, wary but polite, declines the invitation, maintaining their cover by thanking the Frenchman and assuring him they need to proceed. The farmer, though disappointed, respects their decision, promising to keep their presence a secret and wishing them luck as they set off into the increasingly dark waters. Their night's journey begins with a mix of relief and tension, grateful for the farmer's friendliness, yet burdened by the knowledge that they have been seen. This visibility underscores the constant risk they face, even in seemingly safe moments, as they paddle onward under the cover of darkness. Around 1845, they resume their way towards their objective. The raiders progress well initially, but must navigate closely to the shores of an archipelago, heightening their anxiety due to the noticeable sound of dripping paddles. It's still early evening, and the normal activities on shore make stealth difficult. As they approach the first island, the sudden start of a motorboat nearby alarms them. They quickly hide among tall reeds, observing the motor launch pass without lights, suspecting it might be a patrol boat. Eventually, they continue and arrive at Desert Island, located directly opposite the St. Julian vineyards. Here, the ebbing tide impedes their progress, forcing them to confront the daunting banks of the island, thick with tall, dense reeds and slippery mud. After several attempts, at 20:45, they manage to find an opening to drag their canoes ashore and secure a brief rest. Meanwhile, in Great Britain, Cyril Horton at the Combined Operations Headquarters in London receives a brief but significant update. The message from HMS Tuna, coded as Operation Frankton completed 2107, confirms that the submarines have successfully launched the cockle canoes, and Major Hasler and his team have commenced the most dangerous phase of their mission. Later that evening, driven by a mix of concern and duty, Horton steps out into Whitehall to gather more information and buys an evening newspaper. Turning to the stop press section, he encounters a disheartening report. The paper features an announcement from the German High Command stating that on December 8, 1942, a small British sabotage squad has been engaged at the mouth of the Gironde River and has been finished off in combat. This news strikes Horton with a heavy blow. The terse message from the Germans suggests a grim outcome for Hasler and his team, indicating that their mission has been compromised and possibly that they have been intercepted and neutralized by German forces. Horton's heart sinks as he processes the implications of this report, reflecting the precarious nature of such covert operations and the constant risk faced by those involved. At South Sea, Sergeant King, upon noticing the German High Command announcement, brings it immediately to the attention of Jock Stewart, who is temporarily in command of the unit. Understanding the potential for panic and the spread of demoralization among the troops, Stewart takes a decisive step to maintain control and focus within his team. He issues a strict directive that the matter is not to be discussed among the unit members. By restricting discussion on the topic, he seeks to protect his troops from unnecessary worry and keep them concentrated on their immediate duties and responsibilities. By 2 o'clock on December 10, 1942, the 4 remaining raiders awake to continue their journey, only to find the tide still receding, delaying their departure. Launching the canoes proves exceptionally challenging, as they must first navigate a 1.8 meters mud cliff and a stretch of muddy beach. The men, covered in mud and thoroughly chilled by the cold, work noisily to move their canoes to the water's edge, concerned that their efforts might alert nearby residents. The team successfully crosses the shipping channel and maneuvers through a perilous stretch between the west bank and Île Verte with extreme caution, hugging the island's reed-thick shores. By 6:30, as they approach Île de Cazau's southern end, the urgency to find a hideaway intensifies with the onset of daylight. Clinging to the island's dense foliage for cover, they encounter a small pier indicating human activity, but opt to investigate due to the dense woods beyond. Hasler's quick reconnaissance reveals a military installation, likely an anti-aircraft position, confirming the strategic importance of their location. With morning breaking and visibility increasing, Hasler leads a quiet retreat from the potential danger zone. They press on to the island's narrow tip, where the pressure of imminent daybreak forces a hasty decision. At the last possible moment, around 7:30, they conceal themselves in a field of long marsh grass, camouflaging their presence as the sounds of the waking mainland fill the air. They remain hidden, hoping their cover remains secure as the day progresses. During their most stressful day in a hide, the men find themselves trapped and unable to move, sleep, cook, smoke, or relieve themselves comfortably. They remain caked in mud from the previous night's exertions, and a persistent, thin rain adds to their discomfort. The proximity of a German gun site, separated only by a sparse line of trees, heightens their anxiety. Throughout the day, the presence of cattle and low-flying reconnaissance aircraft intensifies their sense of vulnerability. The cattle, curious about the strange new objects in their field, encircle the camouflaged boats, while the aircraft scrutinize the area from above. Despite these challenges, the Marines maintain their discipline, remaining motionless and silent, which effectively conceals their presence. Physically and mentally strained by their efforts, the team feels the harsh effects of exposure. Their wet clothing freezes, making every movement a crackling effort, reminiscent of a starched shirt, as they endure the harsh conditions. As they move further from the Gironde into the Garonne, Bordeaux and the target ships are only about 12 miles upstream. Initially, Major Hasler plans to launch an attack on these enemy vessels on the night of December 10th, 1942. However, they haven't progressed far enough up the river to ensure a safe retreat after the attack. Given this, and after reviewing his charts and air photos, Hasler opts to move a shorter distance that night to establish an advanced base. This position places them within a manageable range for striking at the enemy and subsequently withdrawing effectively. Despite feeling unrested and having endured a particularly uncomfortable and perilous day, the group is eager to leave their precarious position. Unknown to fore raiders, the cuttlefish canoe team of McKinnon and Conway is also on the same island, only a few kilometers away. That evening, at 1845, they relaunch their canoes. They face the same challenging conditions as before, dealing with the steep, slippery mud banks that make entry into the water difficult. For the first time, ideal conditions prevail with a moderate southerly breeze and a cloudy sky that intermittently rains, darkening the night further and muffling the sounds of their paddling. Initially, they paddle up the center of the Garonne River, then switch to quieter, single paddle strokes as they stick close to the reed-lined western bank. Around 22 o'clock, as they round a river bend, they glimpse their long-sought targets, two large ships moored at Bassin South on the eastern bank, well lit and active with loading operations. Inching forward cautiously, they spot a small, floating pontoon pier opposite the ships, where a coaling lighter is moored. Unseen, they glide up to and under this pier, continuing a short distance before finding small water channels within the reeds. Here they navigate their canoes into the vegetation, settling side by side as the tide ebbs, embedding them in mud for concealment. This dense reed bed, towering 9 feet high, provides an excellent vantage point and cover, allowing them to stand in their robust canoes, unnoticed. Across the river, the cargo vessels, identified later as the ex-French Alabama and the German Portland, continue their bustling activities, oblivious to the raiders' presence. Hasler and his team are enveloped by the daily life of a built-up area, yet remain hidden right in the midst of enemy activity. This proximity to their targets fills them with anticipation for the upcoming night's operation. Throughout the day of December 11th, 1942, they remain in their covert location, discussing plans and timing for the upcoming attack in hushed tones, intermittently smoking while shielded from light rain by their canoes. Hasler finalizes his strategy, aligning their movements with the tides to maximize stealth during the attack. They plan to commence their offensive at 21:10 after the moon sets to minimize detection while crossing its path, carefully balancing visibility risks against the operational timing dictated by the tidal flows. Hasler assigns the Catfish team the task of targeting the western bank of Bordeaux's main docks, situated 3 miles away. He instructs Corporal Lava in the Crayfish to operate along the eastern bank toward Bordeaux East Docks, directing him to return and target the ships at Bassen's south if no suitable targets are found on the eastern route. After completing their tasks, they are to paddle back downstream with the ebbing tide as far as possible until halted by the next flood tide or daylight. Then, they are to make separate escapes on the eastern bank and scuttle their canoes. Hoping that the Cuttlefish team, led by McKinnon, one of the missing, might still complete their mission, Hasler ensures all escape gear is readily accessible throughout the day. As evening approaches, they consume their last meal in the canoes and begin to arm their limpets with fuses, marking the transition from preparation to action. Using orange ampoules designed for a nominal 9-hour delay, which will likely extend due to the cold, they carefully prepare their limpets. Each man inserts the ampoules into the fuse caps, secures them, and marks them with a cross to signify they are armed. They also attach placing rods to ensure the limpets can be accurately and securely positioned. This meticulous preparation consumes over an hour as they coordinate under Hasler's supervision, acutely aware of the time, moon phase, and weather conditions. With both canoes fully prepared, compasses concealed, and faces camouflaged, they activate the time fuses at 21 o'clock. The mines are now set to detonate in approximately 9 hours. The weather remains calm, devoid of rain, wind, or clouds, creating a stark and pristine night as Hasler and his companion navigate the tranquil waters of the Garonne. Despite the serene, starry backdrop, the illumination from shore lights, including those from a nearby factory, compels them to maintain a cautious distance of about 200 yards from the shore as they approach their targets. After around 90 minutes of paddling and maneuvering around a river bend, they finally spot their objectives, several ships moored along the west bank, brightly lit, complicating their approach due to increased visibility. Overcome, with a sense of profound achievement akin to that of historical explorers, Hasler and Sparks press on with resolute focus. As they approach a well-lit lock, they steer Catfish in a careful arc to avoid illuminated areas, mindful of the critical timing with the tide nearing high-water slack. This tactical maneuver provides Hasler with an opportunity to safely assess the ships from a distance, identifying 7 potential targets, 5 directly at the quay and 2 others slightly apart. Opting to bypass a tanker and a passenger cargo ship, they target a more strategically valuable cargo ship. An adjacent tanker complicates their approach, but they soon find an ideal target, a large, unobstructed cargo ship. Hasler quickly prepares to deploy the limpets. As the tide begins to turn, signaling the onset of the ebb, they carry out their attack. Hasler places the first limpet at the bow, then amidships, and finally near the stern, effectively setting the stage for significant damage. Throughout this covert operation, darkness serves as their ally, shielding them from view as they attach explosives to the unsuspecting ships. The only interruptions are the occasional outfalls and the ambient noise of ship machinery, which they skillfully navigate. Their mission reaches its climax as they approach the last ship, which is guarded by a small German naval vessel, heightening the complexity of securing the final target. Despite these challenges, their stealth and precision define a critical moment in their daring raid. In the cover of night, Hasler assesses the German naval vessel. Although not his primary target, he recognizes an opportunity to use his remaining limpets effectively. Opting to attach 2 limpets to the sparbreaker near the engine room, they proceed with caution. As they prepare to depart, a clang from the ship's deck alerts them to the presence of a sentry. Caught in the beam of his torch, they freeze, adopting a low profile in the shadows along the ship's side, feeling exposed and vulnerable under the harsh light. The tense moments linger as the sentry paces above, his boots echoing in the quiet night. With no immediate response from the sentry, who possibly dismisses them as driftwood, Hasler and Sparks take a calculated risk. They silently release their magnetic holdfast, allowing the ebb tide to carry catfish away from potential danger. As they drift into safer waters, the absence of an alarm confirms their successful evasion. Continuing downstream, they approach a cargo ship positioned next to a tanker. The close proximity of these vessels complicates their mission. Unable to access the cargo ship's midsection due to the tanker, Hasler opts to place limpets at the stern and bow. In a nerve-wracking moment, the ships begin to converge, nearly crushing catfish between them. Quick reflexes from Hasler and Sparks, pushing against the hulls, avert disaster. Their escape from the tight squeeze allows them to circle around and attempt to place another limpet at the stern of the ship. In the chilling calm of the river, Hasler and Sparks finalize their mission with precision. After planting their remaining limpets on the stern of a cargo ship and a tanker, they experience a surge of relief and exhilaration. Overwhelmed with a bold sense of dominion over the river, Hasler opts for a daring and conspicuous escape down the center of the Garonne, paddling vigorously despite the potential visibility to enemy forces on both banks. This marks a shift from their calculated approach to a more audacious abandon, propelled by the success of their mission. However, the gravity of their situation soon resurfaces. The transition from organized military operatives to fugitives in a potentially hostile environment looms large. Their journey back to safety will be arduous, requiring them to traverse at least 1,300 kilometers in harsh winter conditions without reliable resources. Yet, in the immediate aftermath of their successful attack, such concerns are distant thoughts. They focus solely on using the ebbing tide to carry them as far down the estuary as possible before daylight exposes them. As they paddle past their previous hideouts and targets, they switch to double paddles, significantly increasing their speed. The quiet of the night is briefly disturbed by the sound of another canoe approaching rapidly. It turns out to be Corporal Laver. In the hushed tones of a clandestine operation, Corporal Laver reports to Hasler their actions along the east bank of the river. Unable to locate viable targets due to the changing tides, they redirected their efforts towards the previously identified ships at Bassins South. Laver details the successful placement of 5 limpets on the first ship and 3 on the second, all executed without encountering resistance or complications. The brief reunion in the dark waters is filled with whispered accolades and laughter, celebrating their success before acknowledging the need to separate and continue their escape independently. However, Recognizing the need to adhere to their mission protocol, Major Hasler decides it's time for them to separate and continue their retreat independently. Corporal Lever, longing for a bit more camaraderie, suggests they stick together a while longer. Hasler agrees, but reminds him that they'll need to part ways before reaching land to comply with their strategic plans. The two remaining teams prepare themselves for the escape phase of the operation. As we conclude this episode of the Special Forces in World War II podcast, we reflect on the incredible bravery and determination exhibited by the Royal Marine Boom Patrol Detachment during the assault phase of Operation Frankton. This episode highlighted the perilous journey of 12 commandos as they navigated through enemy waters in 6 canoes, the strategic placement of limpet mines on German cargo ships, and the significant disruption they caused to the Axis supply chain. The meticulous planning and execution of the raid stand as a testament to the extraordinary valor and dedication of these men. In summary, we have delved into the intense moments leading up to and during the assault on Bordeaux harbour. From the launch of their mission from the submarine HMS Tuna to the successful deployment of explosives, each step was marked by immense courage and precision. Despite facing overwhelming odds and dangerous conditions, the Royal Marine Boom Patrol Detachment achieved their objective, significantly impacting the German war effort. As we conclude this episode, we honor the memory of those who made the ultimate sacrifice and celebrate the remarkable achievements of the entire team. Join us in the next episode as we continue the story with Episode 3, The Escape Phase. In this upcoming episode, we will follow the commandos as they attempt to make their way back to safety after completing their mission. We will explore the challenges they faced during their escape, the strategies they employed to evade capture, and the harrowing experiences that defined this critical phase of Operation Frankton. Thank you for listening to the Special Forces in World War II podcast. Stay tuned for Episode 3, where we uncover the gripping escape phase of Operation Frankton. And that concludes this mission briefing, fellow warriors of knowledge. We've navigated through the trenches of information, delving deep into the battlefields of history. As we wrap up this episode in our campaign for understanding, remember that knowledge is your most potent weapon. Stay vigilant and keep sharpening your intellectual arsenal. We'll rendezvous again for another episode, continuing our relentless pursuit of enlightenment. Until then, keep your mind sharp, your curiosity burning, and your determination unwavering. Simultaneously, you are hereby alerted to our outposts on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, fortifying our information dissemination. Should you possess any pertinent intelligence to bolster our mission, transmit your findings with no hesitation. Your contributions shall be prominently acknowledged within the operational archives. Furthermore, for those prepared to provide substantial reinforcement, navigate to our Patreon forward base and enlist. Your support is integral to sustaining our forward thrust. Carry forth the legacy. Dismissed.